sometimes it's important to just step back and have fun with a game. Wouldn't you agree? I think we've all reached the point where we know that the answer to can you beat Morrowind with X stipulation is yes. JBN has done so many challenge runs of this game I honestly don't know what's left. So screw it. D&D Paladin. The key art for the Paladin section of the 2024 handbook shows a female orc. No complaints here, orcs are busted in Morrowind. There isn't a pre-made class for Paladin, the closest you'll find is Crusader and Knight, so we'll be making a homebrew based on the 2024 edition of the D&D Player's Handbook. Paladin's primary abilities in their core traits stat block are Strength and Charisma, so in this case Strength and Personality. Oh look, exactly the same as the base class Knight. Paladins have simple and martial proficiencies and are proficient with light, medium, and heavy armor, so we take all of those skills. I'm shoving medium and light armor into minor skills. I was never intending to actually use them, but glass armor is surprisingly easy to find on the critical path. Paladin gets 2 skill proficiencies of my choice between Athletics, Insight, Intimidation, Medicine, Persuasion, or Religion. Athletics exists in this game, so I'm taking it. Persuasion and Intimidation can just be rolled into Speechcraft. Option A for a Paladin starting equipment is a longsword, 6 javelins, and a shield. That means Marksman, Longblade, and Block have to be there as well. This game doesn't have javelins, but throwing knives and darts are close enough. As for spell schools, Paladin's spells are kinda all over the place. Restoration is an obvious pick, but Pally gets access to stuff like Compelled Duel, Command, Elemental Weapon, Daylight, and Locate Object. I feel very comfortable putting Illusion in there for the Calm, Light, and Sanctuary spells, but Command is actually Conjuration in this game. I don't get it. Also, Sanctuary in D&D is a cleric spell, but Morrowind has vanishingly few options for stuff like Aura of Protection. Also, this game doesn't really allow for anything even close to Smite abilities, so I'm just going to use a lot of weapons with elemental damage on strike. I think that's about as close as I can manage. The bottom line is, I'm putting Restoration and Illusion in there, but it's not a hard lock. If a spell is similar in nature to one that a D&D Paladin is allowed to cast, I'll use it. Also, Intervention and Recall are allowed because this game is not made more fun or difficult by tacking on 5 hours of walking. I'll stick to using amulets for these spells though, D&D is pretty cool with enchanted items after all. For Birth Signs, it's actually a really tough choice. The ritual not only has a strong self-heal, but also 2 Turn Undead powers. However, Paladin also has access to steeds in 5th edition, and the Tower Sign would also cover our bases for those weird detection spells. I went with the steed. High-speed orcs can absolutely book it in Morrowind. It's a good thing Bethesda gave us access to this homebrewing kit by using the tilde key. Some say grave, some say squiggly. Do I dream of the sleeve, or does the sleeve dream of me? That's not for me to know. I'm a paladin. I don't think, I believe. Iron longsword and shield to start. 6 iron throwing knives and a set of Imperial chain armor. Medium armor, not great stuff. Doesn't come with a set of boots or bracers. Common medium armor L. You wouldn't believe the hate mail I get even to this day for not liking medium armor. Also, 9 gold pieces because the book says so. Right away, we return Fargoth's Ring because it's the honorable thing to do, read the unarmored skill book in the lighthouse, and then leave it where it is. Grab the enchanted battle axe from the stump, and then shake off the rust against the local wildlife. Now, you may be asking yourself, what paladin oath are we swearing? Vengeance, baby. Not only does it fit in with the Nerevarine story to swear an oath of vengeance against Dagoth Ur and the Tribunal for their betrayal, it also means we get to be a bit more liberal in our application of justice. An Oath of Vengeance paladin does not concern themselves with trolley problems and prisoners' dilemmas. They take the option that kills the bad guy. Collateral damage is not their problem. Bribery and theft are distinctly dishonorable, however. Hard to justify in any case. The Vow of the Nerevarine. Stolen power is forbidden. Basically, don't steal anything. When was the last time you played Morrowind while completely respecting property rights? Should be interesting. The Vow of Dagoth Ur. Murder is okay. I can kill people who hold back my vengeance from fruition or prevent the prophecy from being fulfilled. The Vow of Sothisil. Do not mislead, misinform, or lie. Stay true to knowledge. The Vow of Almalexia. Murder is okay. The Vow of Vivek. Murder is okay. After saying hi to a rill, I hit the road and touched myself a little. Hearth Heal is close enough to lay on hands, and I'm going to be using it pretty constantly, so restoration won't hurt. For bonus good boy points, we'll be clearing out Adamasartis. Hard to miss this place. You can see it from the Satanine Siltstrider. Not that much to speak of in here, but it's a nice early game dungeon crawl. Early game Morrowind is a lot of swinging wildly, hoping even a single attack hits, just like D&D. We can free the slaves from their pen and then dive a little deeper and encounter Moon Sugar. Terrible stuff. As an agent of justice, I can't even allow it to touch my skin. I could die from the slightest touch. By the way, that is 3 chitin daggers. Can always find them when you don't need them. I, perform burial rites for Tarheal and then head out to Balmora. Getting money is actually going to be interesting. I didn't take Mercantile, and while murder in the name of vengeance is clearly in line with my oath, theft of property is a bit out of character. OpenMW has a toggle which makes your crosshair turn red when looking at items that aren't legal to take, and you'd be surprised at the hit rate on Bethesda actually marking stuff as owned. All of these crates in the street belong to everyone. I'm part of everyone, so that means they belong to me. I'm also taking a penny from every take a penny leave a penny tray. No, really. Meldor's shop has a bunch of gold piles just lying around, and they aren't marked as owned. A lot of loose change in this game is just free, especially stuff on Imperial cult shrines. Not always true, though. Revere guards his exactly 22 Drake Horde quite jealously. I have personality as a favorite attribute and speechcraft as a major skill, but trying to get decent disposition with any of the shopkeepers with Admire alone is, abject suffering. Hitting 0 disposition seems to be unrecoverable without bribery, so that's going to be a fun thing to work on. No points for guessing that Step 1 will be doing the Mage's Guild quest until you get the Intervention amulets. Swapping out the soul gems in Galbadir's desk is not considered theft, nor is taking this limeware platter, apparently. However, harvesting the plants in the planter in Balmora for the Flowers quest would be considered theft. So, we need to find something else. Caldera's Mage's Guild has a pretty good hit rate for this stuff. There's also a liquor cabinet we can raid for stuff to sell, but the alchemy equipment is off the table. Or rather, it has to stay on the table. Can't take anything from Gorak Manor, but I can read the 2 skill books. I also hawk my chainmail in favor of some steel armor over at Hodley Mod's armor shop. It's not usually worth mentioning, but I am also being pretty thorough about checking all public entry buildings for unclaimed items, and in Valvius Maverius' house I find a restoration skill book, which I read and then respectfully place back on the shelf. If there was ever a spell that Paladin could use, it would be Divine Intervention. I join the Fighters Guild and then take all the stuff from the Balmora chapter that now belongs to me. I'm still shy some gold canets, so it's time for a brisk jog. This stuff is absolutely not difficult to find, but I always forget the easy sources. You may have thought that I routed this run out already. I did not. This time I'm just winging it. I don't know why I thought I'd find some in a Foyada though, but I find plenty outside of the Tharis Ancestral Tomb. You know, I don't mind the Brotherhood attacks from the Tribunal DLC, but they sure can be inconvenient. Back in 2002, I think I stopped playing the game altogether simply because every new character ended up in an unrecoverable position from the assassination attempts. It's really not that bad, but I was like 10 at the time. There really isn't much worth mentioning in the Tharis Ancestral. As usual, the Brotherhood armor is going to be putting my kids through college. There's really not that many vendors that actually want to buy alchemy ingredients, and Ajira is easy to get disposition with, so I can finally empty the muck out of my pockets. One of the nice things about being a virtuous and upstanding member of society is never having to worry about stolen item flags when selling to vendors. We are not stealing the Chimar Vermidium.
The Chimer named it Chimar Vermidium, which I'm now realizing it's probably supposed to be Chimer Vermidium.
We are not stealing the Chimar Vermidium, since we are going to be giving it back later. Borrowing without permission, you know how it is. I also read Breathing Water and then put it back. Right, scamps are immune to normal weapons. Lether Vari in Aldrune has Icicle for sale, an enchanted silver longsword. 1 to 25 points of frost damage on strike. Gently used. 110 gold. Pretty cheap for what it is. We can honorably return the Chimar Vermidium to Cyrillonway, and now we have the Amulets of Almcivi and Divine Intervention. Alongside the Amulet of Recall I purchased from Varric Germain, that's 3/4 of the fast travel system solved with magical trinkets. I think you know what the next step is. Normally at this point I'd be able to get promoted to a high enough rank to barter with Fulm's Merle, but I'm actually lacking the requisite skill and attribute requirements to hit Evoker. Shit. So we're off to Shurenball, just south of Narmok, another kite and dagger. These will be haunting my footsteps for the rest of time, I swear.
You will suffer.
I actually hit level 2, but I opt to not level up because my attribute spread is problematic. You can do this by pressing Escape. It's an OpenMW feature and not vanilla. Mother of God, how is this lady in chitin armor tanking so much damage? I'm really not supposed to be here at this level, and honestly, even if I was, I'm probably supposed to be doing something a little more enlightened than swinging on the bad men until their HP hits 0, so it's a lot of door cheese. When I'm out of lay on hands and getting low on health, I pop out for a second to squat really hard and lay a Scrib, which for some reason restores my health, magicka, and fatigue. Don't think about it. Ah, disgusting moon sugar. What is this empire coming to? Well, Amulet of Mark. I almost always cast Mark manually because you don't need to do it more than a half dozen times over a playthrough, and Shurenball is kind of a pain in the ass, but needs must. Or must needs if you're a fan of Koji Fox. Larbird was too far, man. I am getting a disastrous amount of level progress without leveling up. I cast Divine Intervention and get some training at the Imperial Cult Shrine in Fort Buckmoth to try for some more personality attributes. Mercantile is pretty cheap. I then get some spear training for more endurance at the Balmora Fighters Guild before taking an actual, proper nap. Strength, endurance, and personality all up by 5. This is not a sustainable lifestyle. Why have I done this? Time to finally report to Caius. Hasfat wants his puzzle box. I'm already good for level 3, but I'd get no attribute points from it, so I pass. Snowy Granius gets a few good hits off, but otherwise there isn't much to report from Arkanthand. Before heading out to the Androno Ancestral Tomb, I sit down and, discuss the finer points of rhetoric and the history of all known time and space with Moraine Dren before giving up and hitting level 3 and level 4. Could there be a more Paladin activity than laying low the forces of the undead? Well, yes, actually, that's more of a cleric thing. Paladins can't even turn undead. I catch a disease from the Lesser Bone Walker, brown rot. I could just pray it away, but I'm a paladin. Lay on Hands used to be able to cure disease, but now it can only cure poison until level 14, when it still can't cure disease, but can cure any other status condition. No worries. Lesser Restoration is a paladin spell. I just have to roll my own. Time to head to Vivec. Fascinating. The coffer on the front desk of the Vivec Mages Guild belongs to me for some reason. It's locked and trapped, but I can use Varric Germain's Amulet of Opening to gain access to my own property. How inconsiderate! $20 is $20. I get distracted and wander into the St. Olm's Canal Works warehouse. This place is full of stuff that belongs to every me. I can get through the first door, the amulet, but the second is beefier. But this is Morrowind, so there's definitely a key around here. There we go. Once I'm on the other side, I use the secret forbidden technique of toggling myself to walk in order to preserve fatigue. Revolutionary. Adherenir wants us to go make the taxman go away. We go and see him, and the 3 dialogue prompts are to lie to him, that's off the table, rat her out, which I don't want to do, and to say that I don't know where she is, which is also a lie, but it's not labeled as a lie, and I don't actually have any other options, and my HUD is locked up. So I reload my save and, cast Compelled Duel on him. Murder is okay, that's 3/5 of my Oath of Vengeance. That's Adherenir down. I buy a steel frost sword from Nahlis Gauls. It's not really an upgrade, but a sidearm never hurts.
It will
I'll have to actually buy the Progress of Truth this time. For some god's-forsaken reason, I go back to the bookshop in Balmora looking for it, but the real reason why I'm here is to train some bonus attributes for level 5. Strength, endurance, and speed, by the way. With the paper chase behind us, we can gear up for another expedition out into the wild. Asaur Zain Subani needs a thoughtful gift in order to give up the information we're seeking. That's not a euphemism, it's local culture. The Ashlanders are strangely materialistic people for a bunch of nomads who purposefully live outside of modern society. Caius tells us to head to Fort Moonmoth before going all the way to the Urshilaku camp. Apparently he had a parcel of essential supplies sent ahead for us. Takes me a hot minute to actually find the man responsible for handing them out. I'm also collecting amulets like it's going out of style. Soothing Balm and Stamula amulets just work like rechargeable consumable items. I'm going to limit myself to 3 non-amulet equipped enchanted items at a time. That's the attunement limit for D&D. Attunement has kind of a weird hit rate. Basically it's any enchanted item that is especially powerful, just not +3 enchanted weapons because reasons? Unless it's the Holy Avenger, because also reasons? I'm not counting my on-strike weapons because I'm internalizing that it's just me using my smite abilities. The trip from Kuul to the Urshilaku camp is pretty uneventful, just clearing out an old shipwreck for the grand prize of a single soul gem. A thoughtful gift of 200 gold is not bribery, how dare you. And now it's time for the Bonebiter Bow of Sul Senapul, Ashkan of the Urshilaku Ashlanders. Allen wrenches, gerbil feeders, toilet seats, electric heaters, trash compactors, juice extractors, shower rods, and water meters. If you know, you know. I must say, it's a lot easier to navigate the burial caverns once you turned up the minimum illumination slider in the options menu. There's some fat loot on this central pillar, but I've got to lighten up a bit to make the jumps. A little bit of berserk doesn't hurt either. The glass greaves will boost my armor class, but what we really want is Mage Bane. Two-handed glass greatsword, enchanted with an on-cast resist magicka on self. It's no Holy Avenger, but it's pretty damn strong. The downside being that it's super fragile. Unholy undead abominations, you will taste the wrath of my nap time. Okay, so apparently a little bit of berserk does hurt. So I'm actually a bit confused. The Dunmer practice ancestor worship, right? Feels like slaying the ghost of Sul-Matul's father and then pillaging his remains would be pretty disrespectful. Yeah, I guess the point is that their rites and rituals seem foreign to our sensibilities. This is where the run took a break for 3 solid months because I had to move house. Basically an Olympic sport in Canada. I'm lucky to be alive. It did give me some time to do a big old think about how I was doing things, though. The run has kinda lacked spice so far, needs a bit more seasoning. Once I found the box that I'd packed my 5th edition player handbook into, I started poring over the Paladin's spell list to cook up some new spells to mix into the rotation. But I'm not equipped to actually use any of them effectively. So I surfed through menus for a hot minute and then spent a few hours cloistered up reciting my Oath of Vengeance in order to actually be more of a, well, an actual paladin. Shield of Faith is a pretty good substitute for Sanctuary. It's a minor buff, but it's also cheap and fairly easy to cast. I'd love to make a Bless skill for a bit of Fortify Attack, but if there's a way to spell make Fortify Attack, I don't know it. Bless will just be Fortify Luck, Command will be Demoralize, Daylight, Dispel Magic, and Protection from Poison are self-explanatory. Heroism is Calm Humanoid, Detect Good and Evil is Detect Animal, Detect Magic is Detect Enchantment, Hold Person is Paralyze, Locate Object is Detect Key, Magic Weapon is Bound Longsword. Not that I really have the skill levels to reliably cast any of this, and I realize why I can't rank up to Evoker. Restoration is not considered a perfectly viable school of magic by the guild. So, my illusion needs some pumping. I fall into the usual Morrowind pattern. Spell practice, squats, spell practice, squats, buy some training. After like an hour, I'm level 8 and officially bored out of my mind. I blink a few times and remember I'm playing Morrowind, not Oblivion. I don't have to put up with this shit. I can just go on a side adventure and then utilize my knowledge of the game's mechanics to get what I need. So, I suit up, recall back to the Ursulaku camp, and then seek out the hidden crypt in the cave of Ibar-Dad. Level 8 is a fairly high level in Morrowind, all things considered, so a Daedroth is there to greet me, but that's nothing compared to what's up ahead. We use a plain key we found lying around to open the door to the back, and then take a right where we encounter a variety of Daedra who absolutely push my shit. We take a left through the water and come up upon a flooded chamber with a trapped chest containing a key and some literature on proper corpse preparation. Key in hand, we head back to the left path where we... The Golden Saint has a glass dagger that causes paralysis on strike. Pretty difficult to counter, so I'm just gonna pretend she doesn't exist and run away. The pathfinding for Bethesda characters is shoddy, doesn't really matter which game, and if you get water involved, they become helpless as can be. Only problem is that one of these Dremora has a spear, which outranges my claymore. I try poking them with my javelin, but they disappear the instant they touch the surface of the water. I manage to dislodge the club Dremora from the spear Dremora, which evens the playing field somewhat. Morrowind. If it's stupid but it works, it's what we're here for. With that mountain scaled, we can slot that ancient rusty key into the door they were guarding. Welcome to the tomb of Mordrin Hanin. I only have a strong enough open spell for one of these chests, which has a few $100 in it, but what we're really here for is 4 Daedric pieces of equipment and an artifact. A Daedric staff, Daedric battle axe, Daedric shield, and the Daedric face of inspiration. We read the 2 skill books and then reach up and gingerly remove Eladin's Ward, a very strong shield with a restore health 50 to 100 points on self-enchantment. We'll be using the Daedric face and the Ward, but the rest is for funds. Through creative use of some intervention spells and a lot of legwork, we can get this loot back to civilization. I imagine you know what comes next. Welcome to Morrowind. Which game mechanics are we considering exploits today? I actually don't get that much hate mail for creative use of game systems. If anything, people seem to want me to go further, but I do try to at least be entertaining, and you can sure as hell optimize the fun out of Morrowind. I've never actually done the Creeper Shuffle before, but since I'm leaving so much money on the table from perfectly viable theft, I decided this was a good time for it. After all, it is perfectly legal. If you're unfamiliar, Creeper is a merchant in Caldera who buys and sells items for the same value, and he refreshes 5,000 gold every 24 hours. This means that you can make item deposits to him while receiving 5,000 gold of credit, and then withdraw them later in exchange for other items as well as the additional 5,000 gold he has that day. Daedric items are worth far more in gold than any vendor in the game can actually pay for outright, but by taking additional goods as well as the gold for the transaction, you can slowly trade up to the item's full value. It's a lossy process unless you use a creature merchant, and it still takes a legitimately long time. But it's just about the only way to get sticker value on these things. Helping the process a bit is that I'm carrying a fair amount of expensive scrolls and potions, and Creeper comes stocked with some expensive Dagoth brandy. The glass Jinx blade is worth about 6k, so it ends up being traded over almost every time as I work my way towards the bigger ticket items. I am definitely not being as efficient as possible with this stuff. Also, Creeper is not willing to pay a single gold for the shield that the Golden Saint had, which is weird. A half hour later, I fence the staff and battle axe at near full value and have over 70,000 drakes. I leave the Daedric shield on the ground to trade for later. Eladin's Ward is better anyway. We've got the gold, so now it's time for the training montage. Wild what it takes to get a multi-discipline half-caster up to speed in Morrowind. The game was definitely not meant to be played like this. That was like 20 to 30,000 gold, and I'm up to level 13, and all I really got was the ability to reliably cast the spells that are supposed to be in my base kit. Can I play the game now? Kaya sends us off to Fort Buckmoth to resolve an issue that is definitively above our pay grade, but I guess it's no shirt off his back if we live or die in these assignments. The trip out to Narmak is always a brisk jog, frequently interrupted by Kagudi and cliff racers. I realize now I already took the boat to Narmak and don't know why I didn't just do that again, but it's a force of habit. Besides, Pemini is out there, stumbling around, and we're a good boy who only sometimes commits murder, so we'll help her out. Never too hard to find Ilunibi, and I think I'm actually getting the hang of the layout of this place. As usual, the trick is to not fall asleep as the Ash Slaves waste their magicka casting on walls and stalagmites. Ah, a Dremora. I've pushed the leveled enemy list a little higher than normal. Don't mind me, sir, I'm just... Why can't I move? I haven't taken any strength damage. Oh goddammit, the batteries in my keyboard died. A pair of AA's will last like 3 years in a wireless keyboard, and they happened to fail while I was recording footage rather than I was... I don't know, looking at boobs? To say that's a statistical improbability would be an understatement. Batteries replaced, but not without consequence. I got hit with a blight disease, specifically Blackheart. I would technically be cured of this in the next, 5 minutes, but that minus 26 to strength is debilitating, so Divine Intervention back to Fort Buckmoth and pray it away. Of course, now I have to make the trip all the way back. This time I have the boots of blinding speed, and I'm an orc, which means I won't be completely blind while wearing them. There we go.
Die.
Right, I forgot the assassins come back after you hit certain level brackets. I'm going to want to turn these encounters off before they start coming in pairs. Finally, I have the privilege of contracting corpus disease. Glass boots. I'm not happy about using light armor, but the stuff is just so statistically strong that I won't find heavy armor that beats it for a minute. I trained a lot of light armor for agility attributes, so I'm kinda stuck with it. Fists of Randagolf. These are going to be occupying 2 of my attunement slots, possibly forever, which means that at this point, if I want to use another enchanted piece of armor, I'll have to take off Aladdin's ward. We're off to Telfir with the Dwemer Cohere crowding our backpack. I'll admit, I forgot where Telfir is and just swam around the Azurus coast region for a full day fighting random stuff. I stopped to rest in this shipwreck and hit level 14. Searching the wreckage with my daylight spell, I find a grand total of 25 pillows. Riveting. Oh no, my case of corpus is worsened. I just permanently got a +1 to strength and endurance, the indignity of it all. I hop into the Cavern of Abanabi to poke around a little, and doesn't go very well. I give up and take a nap before...
Die, Fetcher.
Alright, the levitation stuff. Well, you see... this'll do. Oath of Vengeance Paladins gain access to the Avenging Angel ability. You sprout wings and gain the ability of flight with a flying speed of 60 feet per turn. Yeah, we'll go with that. I just drank a potion. We talk to Yagrim Bagarn, get the Dwemer boots of flying. In my professional opinion, these boots aren't enchanted, they are just rocket boots, and nothing you say will convince me otherwise. We turn in the Quarskin drum to Yagrim's caregiver to calm down the corpus victims for good boy points, and then head back upstairs to get quote-unquote cured. Caius hands over the reins to the blades, and I avail myself of his training services before he leaves so we can inch towards level 15. You may be wondering why I'm going so hard on leveling an attribute spread. Remember, I have to kill gods. It's not going to be easy. Mira's been locked up in Bardau. We need to deliver her a scroll of divine intervention. The guard woman at the door will let us in, but from there we are on our own. Usually you need to steal the key to get in. However, no theft, remember? But also no lying, so what's the plan? Excuse me, ma'am, I'm looking to attempt a prison break.
This is the end of you, swit!
Murder is okay. Believe it or not, both of the doors in are below the threshold to use my Amulet of Opening. Varric Germain coming in clutch. Even the lock on her prison cell is only level 15. While I'm in Ebonheart, I'll have a word with Apelles Matius, which should halt the hit put on me. Once you have this much money, they're more trouble than they're worth. So, usually coming out of Bardau, I have a bounty on my head. But this time, I don't. So, I guess murder really is okay. But stealing the key to the front door isn't. The Morrowind you know. Lot of Heteria. By sleeping until dawn in Holomayan, we... What in the absolute goddamn? Oh, a hunger. Seems pretty dangerous, but all we can really do is chew on my equipment. I get an athletics level by working out at the library, and then it's level 15. Ever wanted to know how to spot a skill book from a regular one? Me too, I just read the most expensive ones, works most of the time. Now we're off to Cavern. There's a lot of heavy loot worth taking in Cavern, so it's a good idea to lighten up. I find lately I just dump everything I don't care for on this specific carpet in the Belmora Mages Guild. Boots of the Swift and Visually Challenged. The Ordinator gear on the corpse in Cavern would actually be a mild upgrade, but I'm not taking my chances with the law again, at least not yet. Corpus Weepings, 6-House Cup. I'm clearing this place out. The Ascended Sleepers deal a lot of poison spells, but Paladins are sort of specialists in fighting poisons, for some reason. So it's really no issue to... sorry for interrupting whatever the hell that was. The Amulet of Opening is exactly strong enough to get into the loot closets in Cavern. This dead hero, who kinda looks like a vampire if you ask me, is positively loaded down with good stuff. A glass cuirass and shield along with Fury. Fury is a hilarious weapon. 20% blind, which drops your accuracy by 20%, drain all armor skills by 20%, and fortify attack by 20 points. I'm not 100% sure on the intricacies of the math, but the blind and attack buffs should cancel each other out, meaning that all this weapon does is make you take a bit more physical damage and tint your screen dark a little. In baseline Morrowind, without any additional fan patches, the blind effect actually increases your accuracy instead of reducing it, and as a result, it has 40% increase to accuracy. But the armor skill effects are damage instead of drain, so every time you equip it, you lose skill points. Completely ridiculous weapon, crazy stats in vanilla, kinda pointless in OpenMW. Exactly what Morrowind is all about. You may have noticed that despite mainlining heavy armor, I'm almost rocking full glass at this point. I don't know why the critical path of the main story is so heavy with the strongest light armor in the game. I don't make the rules. It's light, it's way stronger than most heavy armor, I'm using it. Ogrim. Don't see many of these. I'm gonna be charitable and say the nipple ring is to wean its young off of its milk, because I strongly dislike the other implications of getting one of those put on. We slay Dagoth Ur for his key to the basement, and then... that door is also level 20. Man, the Amulet of Opening is just the master key to the main quest, huh? I actually bothered exploring the entire Nabith waterway. Spoiler alert, there's nothing of value to be found. I really should have learned my lesson from the Kite and Dagger run and brought a stack of repair prongs with me in here. The amount of enemies you chew through in Cavern is crazy, and all 3 of my longswords are getting whittled down to half damage. I also have a, strangely pathetic hit chance right now for whatever reason. We nab the Shadow Shield and the set of Daedric Gauntlets and recall back to Nibani Mesa. Following a brief detour to Nissus for repairs, I decide to take a trip to Mournhold, City of Lights, City of... something. I realize that I can make a much more accurate version of Bless by using Fortify's skill to improve my Longblade skill rather than just giving a minute luck buff. Fortify Longblade 20 points for 30 seconds. Cost a lot of magicka, but it's worth it. I also create an upcasted version of Shield of Faith for 20 points of Sanctuary instead of 5. Not wanting to bother with the Creeper Shuffle, I mosey on down to Acacia Socia to sell some of that ebony gear I acquired. And look at that, I can get some glass pauldrons to fill out the set. If you're curious why I dislike medium armor so much, glass armor is way easier to get and is really damn strong, while also being really light. I don't know why the game showers you so heavily in glass gear, but it kinda irrevocably tips the balance towards light armor. Even early game chitin armor is fantastic for its weight, availability, and cost. I mainly play heavy armor because I'm always telling myself I'm working towards full Daedric, despite the full set being bothersome to acquire in Morrowind. Never mind that shit, we're off to the Teeth of the Wind in search of the Cavern of the Incarnate. This time I'm going to get some revenge on that Daedric shrine full of orcs.
you.
Being able to virtually guarantee every hit lands in Morrowind is basically a superpower, and of course it doesn't matter whether you're playing Neverwinter Nights or Morrowind, there is no stronger entity than a goddamn door. I must say I don't really understand the repair system in this game because worse repair tools have more uses and are lighter and cheaper. I guess a level 100 armorer only needs one swing of a Master Hammer to fully repair an item from Zilch, but he can still only do that 5 times before it breaks. Further along the road, we stumble upon the Daedric Temple of Zergonopal. Isn't really much to speak of in here aside from a skill book. I have to admit that basically every time I've cleared out a Daedric shrine, I've been disappointed. Random cave in the middle of nowhere with a door made out of rotten wood planks, wonders and riches beyond belief. Elaborate and ancient carved stone temple to the true gods of the cosmos, a handful of potions and a diamond that summons an enemy to kill you if you touch it. Just past the Teeth of the Wind, we happen upon the Derelith Ancestral Tomb, and our reward for putting to rest the souls of the departed is to lay our eyes upon Z-fighting textures. Level 17, Agility, Speed, Endurance. I've never actually noticed that the Ring of Moon and Star spins in place like a PlayStation 1 power-up or San Andreas weapon drop. Or at least it does until you approach it. I don't know what's up with I get the travel-stained pants from Peakstar, and then recall back to be named Ursulaku Nerevarine. Before I can go much farther, hold on. Curse of Ra. There you go, buddy. I got a lot of crap in my inventory, and it's time to lighten up. So, while I manage my inventory, some elucidation into the questionable decisions I'm about to make. I had a big think about doing all the great houses and Ashlander tribes and ran into 2 snags. Most of Hlaalu can be cleared through good old-fashioned murder, but Crassius front-tail-standing Curio demands a bribe of 1,000 gold before he'll vote for us as Hortator. I could call that a thoughtful gift, but that is very clearly a bribe. The second is Zainab Nerevarine. Not only would I have to lie to Khal Shad, I would also have to purchase a slave and then bribe him with her. That's very not okay. That's oath-breaking territory. Ahamusa would be fine, you just help a granny cross the ocean. Rabbanimsum would be fine, you just kill half of the entire tribe. House Redoran would be interesting since I'd have to get through a door locked with a key that I can't steal. And once again, House Telvanni would just be a continuous spree of political murders. So, I'm cutting to the chase. I want to keep scroll use to a minimum, since if you give a player enough elemental burst scrolls, they can move the world. But Morrowind is obsessed with locked doors, and the one into the Archcannon's quarters has no other bypass. I really wanted to do this by enchanting a greatsword with open lock on strike. Apparently that's not a thing you can do, and good god do I wish it was? We break into Tholar Saryani's private quarters and take his key. Notably, these keys are not considered stolen if I was to place them down, meaning they always belonged to me. Tholar was just holding on to them. Not wanting to come to blows with the Ordinators, I divine intervention to Ebonheart, but the Imperial Guard there isn't too happy about me murdering the Archcannon either. This is where I make the dumbest mistake I possibly could, and resist arrest. I'm thinking, yeah, I've got like 70,000 gold, and at worst I can just take some jail time if I end up locked out. And oh boy was that wrong. So, in my ignorance, I persist in this doomed world, recalling back to the Ursulaku camp to lick my wounds and then teleporting to Nissus, where half the damn town are also part of the Imperial Legion. Then I take some Silt Striders and an Almcibi back to the temple district of Vivek.
We make a You cannot escape the righteous.
How will our intrepid hero find his way out of this one, boys?
Odds be massive.
The only way I know how. Taking a deep breath and mentally centering myself before barging into the chamber of Vivek, I see the levitation shrine and have an idea. By offering a rising force potion to the shrine, I'll have a pretty strong levitation buff that lasts for like 40 minutes. Should make dodging Vivek's spells easier. Vivek, I am here to avenge myself. Your reign of ill-gotten power ends here. Okay, so that's why nobody uses the shrine for this. Huh, it's a pretty good place to trap him. Or maybe not. You're not really intended to be able to kill him. He has functionally unlimited magicka and casts spells with a damage of 200, split between 4 elements. He's also super difficult to actually hit and incredibly fast. But on the flip side, dumb as a box of rocks. At last, my ridiculously circuitous plan is almost 1/4 complete. I don't want to fight through dozens of Ordinators on the way out, so instead I teleport back to Nissus, fight off a few more Boy Scouts, and then realize that I'm hated enough by everyone that I can't even take Siltstriders anymore. Any other playthrough, you could just drop a grand on the Operator and probably be high enough disposition to get the function back, but we ain't got shit. Admire almost never works at 0 disposition. Divine and Elm Civvy Intervention will only deliver us directly into the hands of the enemy. Boat and land taxis are out, so all we've got left is the Boots of Blinding Speed. In order to keep up with the attunement rule, I always take off the Gauntlet of Randagulf before I put on the boots. At least, when I remember to, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to spare you the unnecessary running around. I wasted like 40 minutes on this doomed world before having to reload. I was halfway through jury-rigging Wraithguard when I realized I'd have to pay off my bounty in order to get transportation to Mournhold. How does one pay off a 10,000 gold bounty? You don't. Vardenfell has the death penalty. Get a high enough bounty and the Morag Tong takeover. I guess that makes sense. So, I reload to before I broke into Tholar Saryani's chamber, kill him again, put the keys on the floor, notice how they aren't red, pay off my bounty, pick the keys back up, and then kill Vivek a second time. There isn't even a bounty for killing Vivek. It's not even a crime. We're scot-free. With the blood of the so-called gods dripping from my hands, I set out to the Red Mountain to find the journal and plan book of Kagranak from Endisol and Terranolol. Caldera is the closest to the Ghost Gate. As always, it takes a minute to escape Vivek's gravity well. Still going to be quite the journey, so I equip my magical boots of sufferable travel time yet insufferable screen gamma. Endisol, Kagranak's study, is first on the road. Not only do I find Kagranak's journal, but also an ebony broadsword. I've been waiting for a high-tier unenchanted weapon for a minute, and I've got plans. I set a mark and then teleport back to Balmora, where I buy the Winged Twilight Soul Gem from Galbadir using a Daedric Battle Axe as tender. I then hop downstairs and grab a few spells for enchanting, before slapping on Weakness to Frost 15 to 20% and Frost Damage 20 to 44 points on my new Holy Sword +2. I can now smite with the best of them. Maybe it should have been fire damage, but everything in Morrowind resists fire. It's kind of the Pokemon element of the entire game. Next up is Veminal. Yes, Veminal, not Vendicel. Vendicel is in Oblivion. I mistook the two in my most Morrowind video, and somehow no one has called me out on it, but it still gives me shivers at night. Woe be upon thee who underestimates the Ascended Sleeper. Those poison casts are wicked strong. I was hoping my protection from Poison Spell and Lay on Hands would deal with it, but nay. The Dremora Lord in here provides some wonderful foreshadowing. Anyone with Reflect will reflect all that wonderful frost damage straight back on my ass. We pick up Sunder, might as well get the full kit before assembling Wraithguard. Terranolol, Kagranak's library. The library is capitalized, the study is not, you will never unsee it. Plenty to learn in here, so we hit level 18 and then grab Kagranak's plan book. And finally, Odrisol. By taking the back entrance, we can nab Keening without stirring the hive. Yeah, you only need level 20 open for one of the most sacred relics in Vardenfell. From here, I just want to set a mark to the entrance of Dagoth Ur, and then go and see a dwarf about a glove. Back at the Aldrune Guild of Mages, my sleep is disrupted by an ash zombie who politely stands at attention as I finish my 31-hour nap before actually falling to the ground. Jaegrim says he's capable of restoring the gauntlet, but I'm not healthy enough to survive the process. My stat alignments aren't exactly maladapted, some would even say that I'm overly metagamed, but the fact is that I'm level 18 and 39 HP short of actually surviving this thing. You get 1/10 of your endurance as max HP every time you level up, and it's not retroactive. So I need to go on a training mod. Hold on.
Is there something?
Curse of Ra. Well, I was going to go on a training montage to get my HP up to snuff to survive putting on the gauntlet Ra. But I quickly butt up against the max of what the trainers can teach me. Training isn't unlimited, you have to find trainers of certain levels of skill, and even then you can't train above a skill's governing attribute. I get to level 19 with only 169 HP and realize that Marksman is probably the only skill that would level me up that I can still train. I ask around every major guild, mages, fighters, and even thieves guild, and nobody trains in Marksman. Turns out, only the Morag Tong and a few scattered merchants actually know Marksman in Bardenfell. So instead of just leveling up a bunch of times, it's time to turn to medicine. Now Karia of Whitehaven is my new best friend, and I am her new favorite customer. She sells exclusive potions of just about anything you could want. It's not cheap, but I have been hoarding treasure with draconic avarice. I really just need to have more than 200 HP when I talk to Yegrim, then I need to put on the gauntlet and heal myself back to the former max HP before all the fortify effects expire. A little bit of lay on hands makes short work of it. I initially think that I forgot a step, as Dagoth Ur does not welcome me until I get to his inner sanctum, but it turns out that he considered the back path to be not prepared. Dagoth Gilvoth's dresser has a demon cephalopod helm this time, ending a tradition of tasteless and questionable fisting jokes. I chew the fat with Dagoth Ur, but I don't like the taste of some of these words being put into my mouth, so I back out and just smack him. You're pretty much supposed to kill Dagoth Ur by having the bridge collapse on him, but I want it to be a bit more personal than that.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Fool! Stop! This is the end. The bitter, bitter end. Damn this thing. Vengeance!
Gone in a puff of vengeance. Kinda anticlimactic. 2 out of 4 ain't bad, but that's only half the targets. Normally you'd probably put on the Ring of Azura and keep it on forever for that restore fatigue, but that's a precious attunement slot. Speaking of, all of Kagranak's tools are being heartlessly discarded on a random table in the Balmora Mages Guild. Kagranak's tools are stolen power, to be used no more than absolutely necessary. And we're off to Mournhold to take the fight to Almalexia and Sotha Sil. Before we can be granted an audience with Almalexia, Fedris Halur wants us to prove ourselves. King Helseth has been raising a goblin army in the city, and we need to destroy it. The whole goddamn army, by ourselves. I guess that's fair to ask of a supposed god. Almalexia knows not where this goblin army is, but literally some guy on the street is like, oh, that shit? Yeah, it's under God's reach. The first few fights against the Gobos go pretty well. Disturbingly well, in fact. Something is incredibly wrong here. Once they take a bit of damage, they just start drooling and don't fight back. I remember JBN saying that he once had to patch goblins that had potions to not have potions, so they wouldn't lock up completely in combat. So I close out and go through the hair-raising process of updating my OpenMW install during a playthrough that I am recording. Never, ever update anything while working on a project if you can avoid it. Don't be like me. But we're fine. Everything transfers over nicely. All I had to do was just install a second instance of OpenMW and it did everything itself. Well, okay, not everything is fixed. Whether intentional or not, updating to version 0.50 now makes me stand perfectly still for the entire shield blocking animation. This makes using a shield incredibly detrimental to survivability. I've been trying to find a toggle to revert this and I can't find one. And I can't find any discussion about it online. I also downloaded a nightly build to see if it was a known issue that was fixed, and it was not. Being able to move while blocking was a listed gameplay fix in 0.48, and none of the changelogs since note its removal. If you're an OpenMW dev, please reach out to me over the comments. I kinda feel like I'm going crazy here. But getting back on track, we have Durzogs, which kinda look like Varen from Mass Effect, or since Morrowind came first, I guess it's more accurate to say that Varen look like Durzogs. Oh, that is some broken pathing. .50 is not making a good first impression. With the 2 Goblin Warlords dead, we can entirely ignore the side quest to also kill their Altmer trainers, and report back to Fedris Hilur. He then tasks us with speaking with Gavis Drin, the Archcanon of Mournhold. Gavis wants us to escort a priest to purge a shrine beneath the City of Corruption. Oh boy, an escort quest. I briefly consider actually doing it too, but then I remember vows 2, 4, and 5 of my oath, and just skip the whole thing by murdering the priest. There are no consequences worth mentioning, and this man's life stood between me and vengeance. With that done, we are assigned the task of heading down into the sewers for the 3rd time to retrieve Barrelzar's mazed band. Did you play Tribunal on release? I did. Due to improvements in hardware and middleware, we've kinda gotten away from the problem over time, but it's difficult to describe how widespread the dominance of sewer levels was back in the early 2000s. I feel like almost every game would promise big, sprawling open worlds, and then you'd find yourself locked in an endless system of incredibly easy to make and render dead ends. Tribunal was no different. Oh man, we're gonna go to the mainland of Morrowind, we're gonna finally escape Vardenfell, and then we're skunking around in broken down sanitation systems for 20 hours. The City of Lights, the City of Witchcraft, is mostly incredibly dark shit scuppers in my mind. And that's really sad. Add on to this the fact that the main quest up to this point is 1. Kill some goblins, 2. An escort quest, and 3. A fetch quest, and you have a recipe for making 10-year-old me bounce off of it like you wouldn't believe. This main quest does pick up after this, but it's still just a different flavor of sewer levels. Tribunal is a very different game from Morrowind, and if you approach it with the sort of wanderlust that Bethesda games are usually designed to cater to, you will be disappointed. Barrelzar and all his minions fall for the good old casting spells at the wall trick, and he drops a Daedric Claymore. Once again, I have plans. I go back to the Belmore Mages Guild and gussy it up with a stronger version of the Weakness to Frost and Frost damage on strike enchantments, dubbing it the Unholy Avenger. If you know Tribunal, you're probably giggling to yourself at how much of a catastrophic mistake this is. And you would be right. Hello there, Almalexia. Pleased to cleave you. Okay, that's not happening. I'm not happy working with her, but as long as I can trick her into letting her guard down, we're good. Our first task is to help defend against an invasion of machines in the main square, and then investigate the opening left in the statue. Wow, it's really green in here. Remarkable. Hey, yeah, so it was really green in there? Now we have to investigate the cult known as the End Times, a suicide cult acknowledging the waning power of the Tribunal. Since this is an objective fact, Almalexia wants to teach them how wrong they are. Not by killing them, that would just make them martyrs, but instead she wants to kill every decorative tree in Mournhold by causing an ash storm. Okay, that's not what she said, but that will be the effect, at least according to the journal. In order to cause an ash storm, we need to redo a bunch of that quest I just did, because it's really hard to find a place to sleep in Mournhold, so autosaves are few and far between. It's pretty rough in this main room. My advice is to not bother. The Dwemer ruins of Bamzam Shand may just be a different flavor of sewer level, and they may be incredibly green, but I don't mind it down here. For one, that name is incredible. Bamzam Shand is just great fun to say out loud. It's almost like a replacement swear word. It's also pretty easy to find your way through here. The halls are spacious with just enough debris to keep yourself oriented. And finally, there's a lot of mise-en-scène related to placing objects that tell you exactly where some of these Dwemer were the instant that they got Thanos snapped. You'll find a pile of ash on a stool and some boots under a table with a repair hammer on it and go, oh, that guy was tinkering when his corporeal essence was tonally revoked. Oh, there were 2 guardsmen here, and all that's left is the armor they were wearing and spears they leaned on. Unrelated, but I'm now noticing that someone scribbled a pair of boobs on the tang of this claymore. No, don't look. A lot of people were confused that I mosaic censored all the feet in the Oblivion Remastered Millionaire run. That's called a joke? I was also practicing keyframing mosaics for when I might need to actually censor something for real. In order to progress, I need some Dwemer satchel charges. You know, Semtex. They're all under heavy lock and key, as they should be, but that means that for once the Amulet of Opening ain't gonna cut it. There's obviously a key around here somewhere, so why not try Locate Object? I can see it on the minimap, but I'm not seeing it on screen. Let me risk a little more light. God damn it. Time to find out if you actually need to stand back from these explosions. Yep. As one might expect, a completely untouched Dwemer ruin contains only Dwemer equipment, so there's not much to loot here. We slot in the Dwemer Cohere and then fiddle with the knobs at complete random until the journal says I'm done. Our next task is to head into the ash storm-ridden streets and deal with Salis Valur, Almalexia's missing hand. As an additional consequence of updating to 0.50, ash storms now provide movement penalties and bonuses depending on if you are going up or downwind. Cool idea. Very atmospheric. Don't do that, it sucks. Or at least provide a custom toggle. This is Salis Valor. He is here to ruin your day. He's lost faith in his capricious goddess. And as much as I'd love to join forces with him to slay her, he attacks us on sight. This gentleman is level 40, has 40 to 50 points of Sanctuary, making him incredibly difficult to hit with weapons, has 40 points of Reflect, meaning that the large minority of magic damage will instead be dealt to the attacker, 45 to 75 points of elemental resistances, so he barely takes damage from spells anyway, Fortify Strength 70 points, Fortify Attack 45 points, and her Ebony Scimitar, which absorbs 10 points of strength and damages strength by 5 points on strike. He's a brick wall. Fundamentally, someone at Bethesda in 2001 was sipping coffee and said, "Hey Todd, people found out that you can slam 100 Sujamma and just one-shot Vivek with the Fork of Horripilation." So Todd took a sip from that guy's coffee too and said, "Oh yeah? Well, check this shit out." The movement changes during an ash storm make combat feel awful, but mostly I've just played myself by using on-strike enchanted weapons. So it's back to the center of the universe, Balmora Mage's Guild, to rethink my strategy. I grab an unenchanted ebony broadsword and give it a few whirls, but goes about how you'd think. I would later go back and watch how JBN did this at level 4, and the answer is an unenchanted Daedric Greatsword and Berserk. Why did I not use Berserk? I forgore. I'm not exactly in the best condition right now. If you haven't gathered, I threw my back out moving furniture and I've been sleeping. Do you have any idea how much goddamn shrink wrap it takes to move house? There's been one last trick in my pocket that I didn't want to pull out until the very end, but I would not be shocked to learn that Salis Valur could probably kill Almalexia in a fair fight. So, the time has come. 5th level Paladin spell, School of Conjuration, Summon Celestial. Even with the best conjuration training Ajira can give me, I actually can't successfully cast the base Summon Golden Saint spell. But with a shorter duration, I stand a decent chance of getting it out. I also buy 10 exclusive Magicka potions from Nalkaria of Whitehaven. With some help from on high, mostly just to tank the hits this guy dishes out, the fight goes fairly well. I have to use all 10 of those exclusive potions, but right at the buzzer on the last Golden Saint's timer, he goes down. This armor is all pretty good, but it's also all pretty enchanted, and I don't actually want to swap out my attunement slots for any of them. As thanks for our service, Almalexia offers us a choice between 3 permanent buff effects. The best of which is definitely protection from paralysis, but I choose plus 10 to max health, because I have brain damage. The alternative would have just been saying thank you, and I refuse to do that. With Summon Celestial in my back pocket, I get a little feisty and pay another visit to Nalkaria to drop a ridiculous amount of Drakes on potions. Let's see if Almalexia can handle 2. Yes, she can. Oh well, my Oath of Vengeance kinda requires me to at least confirm the death of Sothisil anyway, so I guess it's back on the critical path. Almalexia wants us to restore the Blade of Nerevar, True Flame, back to its former glory. She has the primary piece, the main thrust if you will, but we need 2 more blade pieces. We also need to find a craftsman of sufficient skill. Yagak Groglok seems like just the orc for the job, so we head off to Queen Baranzaya. Yes, that Baranzaya. The real Baranzaya, TM. She tells us that one of the pieces is held by Carid, left-hand man of her son, King Helseth. Under normal circumstances, King Helseth would normally let us duel Cared for the honor of holding the blade, but because I have apparently done the main quest in an odd order, the quest is kinda broken and won't trigger until I complete a different, unrelated quest for Helseth. This game hates me. There's a plot to murder the royal family, and I'm to meet with an informant in the Winged Guar and inquire about his uncle's farm. But he doesn't want to tell me about his uncle's farm because he barely knows me. Or, in the words of an Ashlander, he's asking for a thoughtful gift of a few hundred drakes. You can admire through it, and my skill is far from nothing. I have 55 personality and 39 speech. But I have to reload quite a few times to actually get a successful admire before I down spiral into an unrecoverable disposition. Finally, he cracks and tells us that there will be assassins coming to kill Baron Zaya tonight. Helseth orders us to stand guard outside her chamber. The Brotherhood show up like clockwork, and by now I think I have the most practice killing Brotherhood assassins than anything else. Appeased, Helseth agrees to let me duel Cared. Cared breaks his vow of silence to admit defeat, and Helseth hands me the Dagger of Simicus, which is an artifact that can be donated to the museum. Helpful since I'll need to donate 2 artifacts to the museum in order to get the other piece of True Flame. I could just use the Boots of Blinding Speed, they totally count, and there's a little quest you can do to get the Mace of Slurring, but I have other plans. Just a short hop northeast of Saran is Umbra, who's wielding the body of an orc this time. Yes, the very same Umbra. Umbra desires an honorable death in combat, and we are happy to oblige. We hand in Umbra and the Dagger of Simicus, and that's all 3 pieces of True Flame. Yagak needs 2 days to finish forging the blade, after which he says the blade is complete but not yet burning. We need to see a Dwemer Enchanter. Yagak knows of a powerful Dwemer Enchanter, and though they may all be dead, Radak Stugenthums lived in Bamzim Shand, and I do remember seeing a lot of Dwemer books down there. Perhaps getting them translated would he's just walking around as a ghost. Why wouldn't he be? There are actually a lot of Dwemer ghosts in Arkanthan, so it's not that weird, actually. It's more weird that there's only one Dwemer ghost in here. Radak says he'll need Pyroyal Tar. There happens to be some in a nearby subterranean Daedric shrine, but we have to use the second satchel charge to get to it. We descend into the depths of Noranen Dur, the Teeth That Gnash, and then into the citadel of Min Droom. This fight is pretty crazy, and I think I probably could have managed it if it weren't for the hunger slapping me with paralysis on loop. So instead, it's time for some alternative methods. Dwemer darts pack a hell of a punch. Paladins start with javelins, so throwing weapons are okay. Important note, because of the way that Morrowind's evasion system works, if I actually hit this guy with these darts, they will disappear completely and do no damage. If I hit the ground next to him, he'll take the full splash damage from the AoE. The first AoE reflects back at me, but the rest don't. I whittle him down, dive in to grab that tar, and get the hell out. With tar in hand, Radak is able to enchant True Flame into its true form. As our final task, Almalexia is sending us to Sothisil, the Gearwork City, to slay the eponymous god himself. Another sewer level. I joke, but only a bit. This place does get pretty visually interesting, but there's absolutely no loot worth mentioning, and the place feels really barren. I like these spark showers, although I can feel in my soul my old Pentium 4 computer frying itself trying to render it back in the bad old days. We can use the Boots of Blinding Speed to get past the grinding trap, and we just have the raw strength necessary to hit the lever. This old mechanical colossus is fun. His fireballs have an enormous range, and due to being cast from high ground, they pretty much never miss. I'm poking through my menus trying to find an answer to this guy when I remember. True Flame. Didn't think it would be that much stronger than the Unholy Avenger, but I'm not complaining. Sothisil, I have come to bring you to just ice.
Vengeance!
Well, that saves me the trouble at least. Lady, when this cutscene paralysis is over, you are gonna get it so bad. I wish I could say that some sort of breakthrough was made, but ultimately it just came down to drinking all of my potions in a row. The vengeance is mine. Soon my oath powers will depart my body and I shall be just like any other person. Hey, Phaedrus, I killed all the gods.
Not again.
And that's it. Paladin is Pally done.